Today's Jenna Bush Hager recently shared a touching story during her Open Book with Jenna podcast. Both Savannah and Jenna have had long histories with Today. Savannah first joined as a co-anchor in 2012, while Jenna started as a correspondent in 2009, becoming the fourth-hour co-host in 2019. Over the years, the two have often worked together. In addition to co-anchoring the primary morning news hours, they have even teamed up at times on the fourth hour. They have also appeared in segments together, including a famous one where they discussed the game of mahjong in America. Recently, on Jenna's podcast, Open Book with Jenna, she discussed the friendship between her daughter, Poppy, and Guthrie's son, Charlie. In particular, Jenna highlighted how these friendships helped her and her family as they settled into life in New York. Jenna shared, "We were next-door neighbors in New York City. Both of us aren't from here, so it really made New York feel like this small town." She continued, explaining how Poppy was protective of Charlie when they were younger. Jenna's guest discussed the importance for children to make friends at such a young age. Jenna shared, "Poppy would walk Charlie every single day to pre-K and drop him off. The teachers were like, their relationship is beyond anything brother and sister, because no sister would do that for their little brother." Poppy is one of Jenna's 3 children with her husband, Henry Hager, including daughter Mila and son Hal. Guthrie and her husband, Michael Feldman, have a daughter, Vale, alongside Charlie. At the time, Jenna was speaking with author Jenny Jackson over her novel, The Shampoo Effect, which was selected as a Read with Jenna book this month. Weighing in on the story, Jenny felt that this was a good example of a found family. Earlier in the conversation, Jackson discussed the importance for elementary school-aged children to make friends. She expressed, "They don't want to be with their parents anymore. I'm not that interesting to them anymore. And if we can just link up with other friends who have kids in matching ages, that, for me, right now, is the most magical social dynamic possible." When Jenna Bush Hager and her family first moved to New York, the city felt overwhelming. The towering buildings, the constant noise, the sea of unfamiliar faces. It was a far cry from the close-knit communities they had known. Jenna, though she had spent years in the public eye, found herself feeling like a small fish in an impossibly large pond. But fate had a way of bringing people together. As it turned out, her Today Show co-anchor Savannah Guthrie and her family had settled just next door. Both women, despite their fame and success, were transplants to the city, each navigating the challenges of raising young children in a place that never seemed to sleep. Their daughters, Poppy and Vale, quickly became playmates, their laughter echoing through the hallways of their shared building. But it was the relationship between Poppy and Savannah's son, Charlie, that would capture everyone's hearts and create a bond that seemed to transcend the ordinary. Poppy, with her innate sense of responsibility and nurturing spirit, took it upon herself to look after young Charlie from the moment they met. She was just a child herself, but something in her recognized a need to protect and care for him. Every single day, without fail, Poppy would walk Charlie to pre-K, holding his small hand in hers as they navigated the busy New York streets. The teachers at the pre-K watched in wonder. They had seen siblings walk each other to school before, but this was different. This was something special. "Their relationship is beyond anything brother and sister," they would remark. No sister would do that for their little brother. There was a tenderness in Poppy's care for Charlie that seemed almost maternal, a devotion that went far beyond what anyone would expect from such a young child. Jenna would watch them from her window some mornings, her heart swelling with pride and devotion. Here was her daughter, her little girl, showing a depth of character that reminded her of the values she and her husband Henry had worked so hard to instill. Poppy wasn't just being kind, she was being a guardian, a protector, a true friend. In her podcast, Open Book with Jenna, the former first daughter would later reflect on those early days in New York. She spoke of how the friendship between the children had helped their families feel less alone in a city that often felt indifferent. "Both of us aren't from here," Jenna shared to her listeners, "so it really made New York feel like this small town." It was a beautiful reminder that home isn't just a place, it's the people who make you feel like you belong. The children's bond became a source of comfort for both families. When Jenna and Savannah had to travel for work or faced the pressures of their demanding careers, knowing that their children had each other provided a sense of peace. The kids would have playdates that turned into impromptu dinners, and the families would gather in each other's apartments, the sounds of children's laughter filling the spaces that had once felt too large and empty. Author Jenny Jackson, who appeared on Jenna's podcast, weighed in on the significance of such childhood bonds. She observed, speaking of elementary school-aged children, "They don't want to be with their parents anymore. I'm not that interesting to them anymore. And if we can just link up with other friends who have kids in matching ages, that, for me, right now, is the most magical social dynamic possible." For Poppy and Charlie, their friendship was more than just play. It was a lifeline in a city that could have been isolating. It was a reminder that family isn't always about blood. Sometimes it's about the people who walk with you through the halls of pre-K, who hold your hand when you're nervous, who look out for you because they genuinely care. As the children grew, their bond deepened. They became confidants, sharing secrets and dreams in the way that only childhood friends can. Their parents marveled at how natural their connection seemed, how Poppy continued to look after Charlie even as they both grew more independent. Today, the story of Poppy and Charlie stands as a testament to the power of friendship. In a world that feels often disconnected, where technology sometimes replaces genuine human interaction, these two children remind us of what matters most, showing up for each other day after day with love and loyalty. Jenna's sharing of this story on her podcast touched listeners around the world. It resonated with parents who had watched their own children form friendships, with anyone who had ever felt lonely in a new place, with everyone who believed in the magic of connection. It was a simple story, really. Two children, a walk to school, a bond that grew stronger with each step. But in its simplicity, it carried profound truth. We are all searching for connection, for someone who will walk beside us, who will hold our hand when the path seems uncertain. For Poppy and Charlie, they found that in each other at a remarkably young age, and in doing so, they taught their parents, their teachers, and anyone who would listen, that family is not always defined by shared DNA. It's defined by shared love, shared experiences, and the willingness to show up for one another. The city that never sleeps became for these two families a place where they could rest easy, knowing that they had each other. And it all started with a little girl who decided that walking her friend to school was the most important part of her day.